Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to review Law School Season 1, Episode 1. Let's get into it. So the episode begins with a mock trial, and the mock trial was called the Youngju Dung Drug Poisoning Murder Case. And in between, they took a 30-minute break, and that's when the professor So never returned. So they had a student to go in to check on him, and they found out he was dead. The investigators found a suicidal note while searching the premises, and then one of the investigators was also the professor, mentioned that it was fake because if he wanted to end his life, he wanted to have his meds updated. Then we get to the scene where the professor is going over a case, the same professor who was at the crime scene. Turns out he wasn't an investigator. He was actually, the investigators allowed him to get into the scene. For what reason? We don't know. The professor was going over a case and he cold calls Kang So-ah. And by calling her Hot Haibun, and she quickly changes her hair and says she doesn't know if anyone in this class has a Haibun, so therefore she hides her head, and then Han Chui answered for her by saying, "Oh, we don't have anyone who looks like that, but I'll answer the question." Jung Hoo and Jun Wee go back and forth on the case, and whenever the professor tries to cold call Sola, Kang So Bi will try to correct her in a way, making her look dumb. So basically, it was a standoff. So every time Kang So was answering the question wrong or nervous and not respond, Kang So Bi will just answer in an effort to make her look foolish. So as the nurse kept getting to Soa, she leaves the class because she felt like she was going to throw up from the nerves because the professor then shifts his attention from Solbi and Jui to Soa and just kept badgering her to the point that she almost threw up and just left the scene. We get a flashback which revealed why Soa was inspired to do law. The flashback showed Soa applying to the law school, and she told Jung Hoon, the professor, at the time she was applying in the flashback that law owes her an apology because she tried to help someone in the past and she was hit with an assault charge, but in the end she had to settle with a hefty fee, and it was quite expensive. And therefore she believed that law, in a sense, let her down, and that is why she applied, hoping that she could make a change. Professor discusses a bribery case with the class, and the bribery case was around the chief prosecutor, So, who was the professor that was killed in the beginning of the episode. And he was indicted for bribery for receiving around $370 million of land by Assemblyman Co. While he was proven innocent at Supreme Court because he says that it was given as a gift, So then enters the classroom, and then it got everyone by surprise because they were going over a case that was about one of their professors, and he walks in and he says it was a gift, like they said in the final verdict, it was a gift, so therefore he couldn't be prosecuted. Then we get flashbacks that show the professor trying to prosecute So. In the present, we can see that he was visibly irritated that he couldn't book Professor So for his bribery. Afterwards, the professor told So that he wouldn't have been the best prosecutor if he had not let himself get the best of him. Whatever that means. We have the death of So is still being investigated, and they're all waiting for an autopsy report to confirm if it was murder. Then we see Sola being annoyed because everyone was just going back to their studies as if there wasn't a murder that happened amongst them, and it bothered her to the point that when she was in the study room, she would sigh, and then people would just like cough or hit their desks telling her shut up. Like they wanted to get their studies in. She couldn't focus because their professor that was leading the mock trial was murdered in their 30-minute break. But people just, the sun goes up. People gotta keep studying. So, hey. She was pressed on trying to figure out who the suspect could be. And one of the suspect was Lee Man-ho. And he was previously convicted for being a child R word. because we're not gonna get YouTube's not gonna catch me slipping. He was convicted as a child R word that rhymes with ist. So then we get to the scene where Lee Man-ho returns, and we start with a new class called the Civil Law Code. And it was taught by Kim Un-suk, who is a pregnant instructor. And we see that In Man-ho enters the classroom and then asks Un-suk if he is a thief. Un-suk was confused because he was covered by his mask. Then we get a flashback to 2008 where Un-suk was the judge of Lee Man-ho's trial. And unfortunately, due to Article 10.2 of the criminal code, his sentencing had to be reduced. And in that article, it states, for the conduct of a person who is unable to make discriminations or to control one's will, the punishment is mitigated. So because of that, he had a reduced sentence, and unfortunately, it made Un-suk sad because he was a child fist. You could fill in the blank. So, and now that law is called the In Man-ho Act, and Sung-jae yokes Lee Man-ho in anger because Lee Man-ho was sitting in that classroom free, questioning them, and basically belittling them. And then that's when the professor, Jung-hoon, stepped in to stop him, and he told him, no matter what your intention are, it could be manslaughter or homicide. And if you are going to kill him, it shows your intent. So therefore, you are looking at a homicide. So therefore, Sung-jae stopped. And then that's when Professor Kim starts to bleed. And then she was rushed to the hospital. And as she was rushed to the hospital, they found out that the doctor they requested, Dr. E, he was in surgery, so therefore it was going to be delayed. So miraculously, I don't know how it came to this, but then they asked Sung-jae to examine Un-suk, and she did. And I was just like, aren't you in law school? Who knows? Maybe he's a JDMD. Who knows? So he asked if he could take a look, and then the scene cuts there. And then we get to a scene where Lee Man-ho and Jung-hoon are speaking to each other, and then Lee Man-ho said that he was going to lock that student up for premeditated murder. So Lee Man-ho was in Jung-hoon's office telling him that he wanted to lock up Sung-jae for premeditated murder. Premeditated. Lee Man-ho tells Jung-hoon that he wanted to lock Sung-jae up for premeditated murder. Jung-hoon references September 10, 2008 and the license plate of a car that was in a hit and run and the driver at Juretong. And this is where a child witnessed Lee Man-ho's R word that rhymes with Tate. Jung-hoon mentions that this is a hit and run Jung-hoon mentions that this hit and run is his only cold case and that he hoped Lee Man-ho remembers something soon before the state of limitation expires. Then we get to the scene where the students were trying to figure out the case and they were looking up multiple lawsuits of defamation, and then they found out that drugs were found in Professor So's car and everyone was visibly shocked. So they were wondering, could he have been a drug addict that overdosed? Then Sola mentions how they were the only people in the courtroom during the break, apart from the delivery guy who was delivering food. So technically, everyone is a suspect. Clearly, Sola spoke too soon because during a new mock trial that's ran by Jung-hoon, the private investigators broke in and then starts questioning the class. They're letting them know that they want everyone to cooperate because they're under an investigation for the murder of Professor So. So then one of the detectives was pulling up on the screen footprints from the scene. Basically everyone's shoes that was in the room. So it made everyone a suspect because they were detailing the shoes and the shoe size. So by default, it made everyone a suspect. Then that's when Jung-hoon told the officers to leave because he feels that they are threatening the students and therefore it's going to affect their cooperation, making them confess to something that they never did. And then the police officer was confused, and then that's when one student pitched in and said, yes, I actually feel worried and endangered right now. And another student jumped in and said, yeah, this is raising my stress level, so I don't know if I could even cooperate if that is your goal here. So basically, lesson of the day, do not interrogate a room of potential lawyers because they will get you. They will get you easily. So then the officer said, sure, whatever. He left. And then, as soon as the detectives left, they continued the mock trial. And then, once the mock trial was going, the detectives rushed back in. They arrested Jung Hoon for the murder of Professor So. The professor being arrested for the murder. And then we see scenes where the professor had actually murdered Professor So. And then when we are back to the scene when the investigators are showing the shoe prints, the footprints and stuff, it was showing snippets of each student that cooperated. And each student that cooperated in the scene are the star students of the class. So I'm thinking that they're going to be his suspects. He's going to rat them out or something. I don't know. But then in the preview for next week's episode, we found out that one of the students that he's related to Professor So. So I don't think he would be out there to kill his own uncle. But yeah, I rate this episode an A. This is a really good episode. Like, they did a great job tying in everyone's story. They did a beautiful job introducing every character in their backstory. Like, I know every single character in their backstory. So that's a really good thing. So in the first episode, they really did a good job. So this episode gets an A, and I have like an A plus for the first episode. And I'm looking forward to what the series has. So thank you for stopping by, and drop a comment, and we'll see you for the next episode. Take care.